how I've made this musical mandala patch in JavaScript, how I've integrated it with the OPXY and the MIDI that's there. I do have the OPXY synced to this Teenage Engineering KO2, so I've talked to my laptop, which is showing the musical mandala patch. A mandala is essentially when you take a very intricate design that you make, and it's often made out of like colored sand, and it takes a long time, and it might be a group effort. And then once it's done, you get rid of it. It's just you start a new one. It's a meditative thing more than art in a way, but it is very pretty and it's fun. As you can see, it's already drawing on the patch with no music. It's responding to my voice right now. But if I were to play some noises, which I would have to be able to make sure that you guys can hear them. So if I play noises, the result is we get output. Output is mostly determined by volume input. So louder sounds will create more deviation and changes in the mandala. And then the sounds that have higher frequency spectrum energy, like treble sounds, will have a lighter shade. So if I like clap really loud, if it catches it, it gives me a bright yellow, and then bass energy goes into the darker hues. Let's talk about the XY. It is a sequencer sampler synth. It's very powerful. It makes a variety of sounds that you can link together and play in sequence. It can integrate in and out of a variety of different sound systems. It works with CV, it works with MIDI, it works with, just a lot of different workflows. And why I chose to make a JavaScript mandala patch, I don't know, but that's what you're seeing now. The parameters I assigned were all corresponding to the sliders that you see in the lower left-hand corner, which I thought were the best variables or parameters to have the ability to change on the fly with performance. So when you are assigning MIDI with the XY, without getting too crazy about it, there's these two different banks. If I hit 2 and 3, you can see some of the numbers changing. And those numbers are variables that are reflected. You can see the sliders change when I move these for encoders. I also apologize for if it's hard to see the XY. It's very hard to capture the face of it with the grayscale gradient scheme, especially like trying to get it so you can see the number here and the number here. Okay, was a lot more difficult than I expected, but bear with me. And if something doesn't make a lot of sense, it's probably because it's even hard to see the screen in person. Some of the numbers are very small on the screen. So, but I'm working with these two different banks, and they are assigned to the sliders that you see in the lower left-hand corner. And that gives me the ability to change how the mandala behaves and reacts to whatever gets thrown at it. If we start playing a beat, this is just responding to the audio and the current settings. But let's say we wanted to get rid of the fade effect entirely. Like we don't want to see the fade at all. We can do that if we simply turn the value all the way to the highest. And now it won't do the fading effect. You can also turn it off and on with a hotkey, which I have MIDI triggers for that too, but it's a lot easier for me to just press F right now, but that turns the fade off and on. You can also set how much the fade, the sustain of the fade, how long it sticks around. And you can send that all the way down to now, unless I change that slider, everything that gets drawn will stay on the screen and it won't even really fade. So gives you different aesthetics to work with based off of that fading value, the alpha fading. So the second parameter is color sweep. So the color sweep is cool, especially when you modulate it with the with this mode on, which I'll get to that in a minute. The third parameter is the speed. And it's kind of a weird term because what I mean by speed is, so what's happening is if I were to cut all the audio and my voice included, what you would see on a clear screen is just a circle being drawn by however many dots you assign, because right now we only have the smallest variable, but you can see I'm adding more and there's more symmetry, which is a big thing that goes into what a mandala is. So the speed is how quickly it's drawing around this circle that's in the center, and that speed changes it reacts to other variables pretty well. The radius is the fourth value, so what that does is it makes the circle smaller, the draw area potentially smaller, and then you can send that all the way up so that you don't even really see the lines very much on the screen. The way we do that is we add sort of an impact, or like how much does volume and frequency impact everything else. And that's the deviation value. So I have two banks of MIDI, and I just went from the first one, which I had been using exclusively so far, and now I'm going into the second one. So let's say we wanted to make something very small but intricate looking. So let's go ahead and bring that deviation all the way down. We're going to bring the speed down as well. So with all three of those faders or sliders in the bottom left-hand corner, that's what's making it so small and in the center of the screen right now. So if we play a beat, you can see that it's done something very intricate but in a small space. So let's bring those sliders back up a little bit. So you can see it's filling out a different amount of space. Also, the size of the drawing strokes is bigger when there's more volume energy, as well as kind of there's this distortion effect where I ellipse it so it becomes less of a circle as that energy is increased as well. So that's what makes it less of just like one pen kind of looking throughout the whole thing. It'll look like a marker or a pen, or you know, have a different kind of slant or angle to the actual strokes being drawn on screen. Okay, so that was the fifth parameter, and the sixth parameter here might be a trigger and not an actual parameter. So you can see here, if I turn this, everything disappears. And that's because it is set as a trigger that triggers at the value of 64 when you go beyond that. Oh. Not ideal for MIDI triggering, but just to show that I've implemented some triggering. And then the 7th is another trigger. And what that does is, I'm going to try to do it there. When I get to that 64 and go to 65, it randomizes all of the sliders. So you essentially get a totally different mandala effect with that trigger. So that's the MIDI integration for the most part. I'm going to show the last thing with it, which is the LFO or modulation that you can do to the MIDI. You turn it on the XY, and then you get these 4 different parameters to work with. One is the rate at which there's going to be some type of change to one of the encoder values. Then there's the deviation, how much it changes. And then there's, is it going to change on the first or second bank? And then also which encoder it changes on which of those banks. So, for example, if we wanted to have some type of modulation that changes the color, we can do that pretty easily by going into this setting, and I'm going to turn this to this dial, which is just an LFO, and I'm setting the rate to be high enough that we notice. What I just did was I set the LFO to something that you can see on screen. You can see the slider that's moving on screen right now. The amount it's moving is the second one of these. So if I, play with that, you can see the speed at which it has to cover that distance becomes more dramatic. And then the first bank is where the color sweep variable is. Now it's just doing color sweep, so let's bring the radius out. So you see the color changing, but let's say we wanted to do a change in the deviation, because the deviation right now is set really low, so that's why it's sticking to one kind of circular line. But if I were to change this third parameter here down to CC2, now what's it like when we play when one of these MIDI parameters is being modulated like that? Let's go ahead and change it. So right now it's affecting whether fade is on or off. And now we're back to color sweep. And you can set it to impact at the rate of the song in some way. Like this is set to triplets. So I'm going to have it change the random. It's going to trigger the random parameter, so all the sliders change. I'm going to have that set to be in a triplet that's supposed to be in time with the beat. So let's see if I can figure that out. That means we got to go into bank 2 and probably playback. yeah, that's the Musical Mandala Patch. I'm refining it. I want there to be some more representation, some more flexibility. Uh, but I feel like it's on a good path for the assignments, parameters, MIDI parameters I'm using. So I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. And I do stuff like this often. Sometimes I'm on Twitch. Sometimes I'm on YouTube. I'm at Macedonia on Instagram. I do a lot of posts on there about generative and VFX and audio and sound design. So check me out there. Feel free to, hit me up if you got questions about this type of stuff. I do happen to teach it. So, yeah, thanks for watching.